Good evening, everyone. Salam rahmatullah. Imtiaz. Well, I've expected different people, not Imtiaz. Good to see you guys. You look a bit younger, ya Imtiaz. Huh? Well, glad to be here. And sorry about the switch. Last minute switch. I'll blame it on the traffic, but it worked out smoothly. Today's topic, they've asked me, construction week or construct talks is going to be in Jeddah. So I got quite excited that it's my hometown, quite familiar with the place, been here so many times to different exhibitions, different conferences. But today it's in the core of what we do as a company, and I was reminded not to do free marketing for the company. So I'll try my best not to mention what I do on a day-to-day basis, but I'll try to speak as much as I can about the concepts of sustainability along with buildings and how they both relate to each other. Before I start talking about buildings, I'd like to talk about sustainability, because in the midst of what we do, we kind of take the topic of sustainability for granted, or sometimes as if it's a burden on us. I used to work for the World Bank Group back in 2003. And at the time, we spoke a lot about the SDGs. We spoke a lot in 2003 about the MDGs, the Millennium Development Goals. And those were a set of goals countries were supposed to meet in order to meet the challenges of ensuring we have sustainable development. Fast forward, 2010, countries got together and they came up with the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals. But whatever you call it, MDGs, SDGs, the concept is simple. And that is, you want to make sure that our future generations get to enjoy the same benefits of what we are getting today from our planet. That's the basic concept, is ensuring the well-being of future generations similar to the well-being of what we are offered today. So the MDGs or the SDGs, they focus on key principles. They all factor in about what are we doing to ensure carbon emissions is contained. And the United Nations has a target. I've attended the COP27 and COP28 last year, and countries made commitments about reaching the level of net zero. Some countries said we're going to reach it by 2030, some are extending it to 40 and 60. So where does buildings, where do buildings come in that equations? And the statistics is quite clear. 40% of CO2 emissions come from buildings. So buildings is a big contributors to climate changes. And unless we are able to decarbonize buildings, the aim of reaching the neutrality or to reach the net zero targets by 2040 or 50 will not be achieved. And it will not be achieved for simple reasons. Buildings, as you see in many countries, and even here now in Saudi, they last 30 and 40, 50 years. And to employ technology, and when I talk about technology, I'm going to be speaking about technology from two angles: from the OT, the operational technologies, the hardware, and then the IT, the information technologies, and how they both intersect with each other. You see now, there is a movement in Saudi in particular And we've seen that actually evolving in the past couple of years, where the energy efficiency ratios of products is becoming a paramount. I mean, the government's introduced, I would call it, very tough regulations when it comes to regulations around the energy efficiency ratio as they relate to the HVAC equipments. Because when we talk about buildings, as I said, 40% of the emissions globally comes from buildings. And 50-60% of the emissions coming from building has to do with the HVAC systems. So the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia introduced draconian measures to reduce the level of consumptions, but that's on the hardware side. And we've seen now, if you were to buy consumer products, you look at the energy efficiency ratios, and it has to meet certain standard, and that got also improved to, instead of the ER, they started talking about the SEER, the seasonal energy efficiency ratios. But that's not the whole story. I mean, that's kind of straightforward. I mean, you look at the data sheets of either applied systems or consumer products, you would know where those systems rank among their level of efficiencies. But the key, the real challenge is how to employ technology to ensure system as a whole. So we're not talking about only the hardware and how that hardware is operating in isolation, but we're talking about the entire building and we'd like to always look at it as solution offering. So when we're looking at the consumption, don't look at the hardware, look at the hardware and look at the software with it, and then look at the net results of that formula. The software part is where the real challenge, I believe, is today, because I'll give you an example to illustrate why it is hard to reach the objectives to decarbonize building looking at the hardware only. If you take a university campus or an airport, you talk about, on average, if we take, let's say, King Abdulaziz International Airport, you talk on average about 300 to 500,000 data points connected to the hardware. So if you want to optimize for energy, if you want to optimize for the right decarbonizations, you will not be able to optimize without using technology. And when I say technology, I'm not saying even just using a BMS, building management system, as a standard. No, I'm talking about using artificial intelligence, machine learnings, and connecting the hardware and the software and allowing machines to make decisions for optimizations. So it is complex. And when I say it's quite challenging, it's quite challenging from the point of view, the level of awareness when it comes to what to use and how to use it is still underserved in the kingdom. We are, I mean, the company where I work for, we have the largest aftermarket operations in the Middle East. And I see clients today still asking for, when it comes to, let's say, management of the hardware, it is always the number of headcounts rather than show me the technology. Let's talk about the KPIs. Let's talk about power consumptions. Let's talk about things that an expert system can provide. So that part of the equation is still not served to the right level. Another thing, another example actually. Now, when you are mostly in Europe or North America markets, companies, when they want to rent out a commercial space, they're looking at things like, is the building LEED certified? Before they make their decision, do I want to be in this location or do I not want to be? When you look at institutional investors, Yesterday, we were here in Jeddah, actually. We've signed a pledge as a company, along with 4 or 5 other companies. I mean, I could mention their names, Extra and Saudi Cargo and the Suleiman Group and 2 others. We signed a pledge about sustainability report to be issued. Now, we volunteered as a company to issue those reports on annual and periodic basis. But we have not seen still a movement from end user, from tenants of commercial real estate asking about such technology. And as I said, I work for an HVAC company, so when we look at the number of the technology that is being employed to manage our hardware, I'll tell you, I mean, I'll be very frank with you, we are still not up to the level. Come to the consumer products, yes, I mean, as I said, the government is driving it, you have the Saudi Energy Efficiency Center is driving it, but when it comes to the applied system, it's still not there. And that's a challenge that requires consultants, contractors, end users to realize each one of us has a role to play. And when I say each one of us, because frankly, I mean, when I go back about sustainability, yes, contractors, I mean, oftentimes, think about this. From the time the original specifications are written to the time the actual job being executed, I mean, usually 3-4 years. I'm talking about mega jobs. Comes to technology, in 3-4 years, they evolve. And that means, and we've seen it before, that means the contractor is the one deciding, do I employ the latest and pay a bit extra? Or do I stick to the original specifications of the project? And truly, my advice always to clients, and my advice to, I mean, since here it's everyone, I mean, there is no restriction. We, as human, I mean, got to play our role to ensure sustainable development takes place, ensure that we are serving our communities, ensure that we are part of this global debates about reaching the net zero targets either by 2040, 2050, or even accelerate. And as I said, that cannot be achieved without looking at the hardware and looking at the software, because it does require the marriage between the two. And that's really the main essence of what I wanted to speak about today. Now, when it comes to our artificial intelligence and machine learning, luckily there are so many systems out there today that are able to ensure that as an end user, whoever that might end user be, is quite knowledgeable of how the building is operating. I mean, think about it as, I call it usually complex adaptive system, like the human body. I mean, we look at the university campus, I mean, or an airport, an expert system usually allows you to make a decision how to optimize the system, taking into consideration cost, power consumptions, indoor air quality, comfort level, security of the space, and optimization of the space. So the systems today do exist, but again, as a user of the system, it is your responsibility to ensure you are making the right decision, asking the right questions, and looking at technologies and looking at the development that is taking place in the technology that allows us to manage our building, envelope or building as a whole, as one entity. If you have any questions in specific, I tried my best to kind of give an overview because I know that I have a mixed group of people, but I'll be happy to answer questions if you have any. Thank you. Yeah, امتياز.
Thank you. It's a nice speech. As you said, the important is 40% of the CO2 emissions and 50-60% come from decided equipment. So, as you said again, the consultant defines something, by the time it's constructed, it's 3 to 4 years, the technology changes. So, how can you fill the gap between consultant and the constructor as well as the manufacturers like you?
Thank you, Imtiaz. When I said 40%, I think you're understanding the 40% is from building and the other 60 is from what? No, I didn't mean that, sorry. What I meant here, 40% of the global CO2 emissions comes from building. The other 60, there are other guilty.
My question is not that.
Yeah.
Out of the buildings.
Yes.
Building contributes 40% in the global, and then 16% of the energy comes from extract equipment of each building.
Of each, yes, okay. Yes, and then your question, how do we bridge the gap between the consultants who design versus the end users and when you provide the end products?
And of Jackson controls, so because only building efficiencies, like power cooling machines or energy in building. So how can you combine both power and cooling and energy efficient equipment?
I agree. I'll tell you, we have a building management system, just an example, you know it, Metasys. And it's a live project, actually. Here we talked about this particular point. When the specs were introduced, we're talking about 9.0. Now, it's still not going to be operational now. It's going to be operational in 3-4 years. We're talking about Metasys 14. And we, as a company, we try our level best. We have a team that does basis of design. So our team would go around and try to educate consultants, who are usually the owner's representatives, about the latest technologies and what should a customer expect in terms of the technology. And we do that quite extensively. I mean, we do that through our social media, through workshops, through similar events like this one. However, again, not every project has a consultant. I'll give you an example. I know your background, Imtiaz, in the aftermarket services. I was just talking to the team today about a project that we have, replacement jobs. The replacement jobs usually are managed by the maintenance team of the clients, who may or may not have the right experience. So consultants usually are not around in such cases. So it's not always easy to raise the level of awareness, but we try to do it. Through mainly our communication with consultants. We give trainings for end users. We also have programs now. In our factory in King Abdullah Economic City, we've invited almost last year 3,000 people. 3,000, not only invited actually, 3,000 people showed up to our manufacturing facility. And we have a center called Net Zero Center for data-enabled technologies. And what we talk there about is the latest, what's happening in the technology, show them the hardware, what is the latest in the hardware and the software. So this is how we try to bridge that gap in understanding and knowledge.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so just I don't know where I missed. So when you are talking about the meeting for the contribution to 40% of the global CO emission, we are talking about industrial building, right? Or we are talking about residential building.
I'm talking generally speaking, and it varies. I mean, frankly, even when I talk about 40%, by the way, about 28, about to 30% comes from the actual buildings, and then the other 10 comes from the logistics, from the manufacturing of the building materials. So it's not the entire 40% is not within. It's not from the operations of the buildings. I'm talking about the total wall to wall, what it takes to have a building with the technologies and the HVAC and. So that's the 40%. But then it varies. It varies. I mean, the ambient temperature in Saudi is different than the ambient temperature in North America. So the contributions of buildings in Saudi, I would assume it's more than 40%, because just the way we use HVAC, right? In other places, it is less. So the 40% number is generally what is being accepted as the CO2 emissions coming from building, but it varies from one application to another.
In terms of buildings, you are talking about residential construction has different types, like the factories and other things which will have more CO2.
Again, it depends on the application. You're absolutely right. I could see exactly what you're saying. Yes, residentials that consumes 5 tons or 20 tons of cooling is going to be different than a manufacturing facility that is 20,000 tons has cooling, and it's different building envelope insulations. And I mean, depending on the application, that contribution would be different. I hope I'm understanding your question correctly.
Assalamu alaikum.
Salam.
Thank you for your presentation. I was came here late. This is Mohanad from Alshaikh. You are a company of Alshaikh company. I have a small question for that. How today we are talking about the CO2 emission, and we have the factor for the CO2 for each countries varies to another country. By today, what is the official factor for Saudi Arabia? This question, if you can answer.
I don't know the answer to that, frankly speaking. But I'll tell you what Saudi is doing, guys, and I forgot to mention that. Saudi established a company called Tarshid. That was established a couple of years ago. And what they do is energy auditings of buildings. So most government buildings today, if they want to go through replacements, they go through an ESCO model. And the model, I'm not sure how many people are familiar with it, but it's quite simple. Take a university campus that consumes, let's say, 200 million riyal worth of energy a year. Yes, so 200 million is the electricity bills that this university campus pays on a yearly basis. So Tarshid would come in and invite ESCO companies that are specialized in energy auditing. And they'll say, Mr. Johnson Controls or whoever, you're a certified ESCO company, we want you to come, do an energy audit of the building from the hardware, from the software, whatever you feel will contribute to reduce the energy bill and reduce the power consumptions. And the ESCO company would come and do an audit of the HVAC systems, of the lighting, of the controls, of the AHUs, of whatever that contributes to the consumption of the building. And the ESCO company will come at the end of the day, say, Mr. Tarshid, yes, I could reduce my energy bills from your energy bill from 200 million to 100 million, and I'll give you financial guarantees that your payback will be in 4 years. Of course, there is a methodology that is accepted, universal methodology actually, of how this energy auditing. And as an ESCO company, you would come and you put your financial collaterals, and at the year end, there will be a calculation. Did you achieve your promised saving? Yes. Then you're good to go. If you don't, we'll deduct it from your financial collaterals. And the company I work for in Johnson, we are certified ESCO company. So it's a very beautiful model. Globally, actually, Johnson has, a couple of $1 billion worth of projects under the ESCO model. But it tells you, when it comes to Saudi, they're taking this energy efficiency quite seriously. It's not only consumers, but also on government. And luckily now, because when Tasheed started, they were focusing mainly on government projects. Now they're even willing to take, because you have some private sector clients that don't have the liquidity to finance such ESCO projects. So the banks usually here they're hesitant because they don't understand the model fully. But ESCO or Tasheed, they got the fund and they are willing to finance private sector projects that got good potential. So this is one, but I don't know the actual, how Saudi compares to other regions. But I know that we consume lots of electricity. As a company, we've installed about 2+ million tons of coolings in the past couple of decades. So I know, people love air conditioning here.
Salam. Thank you for your presentation. When it comes to awareness and technology, have you had such a cooperation with the university in Saudi Arabia? If yes, how it was? And the second thing, is there a possibility for such a cooperation in the future? And what do you expect?
Absolutely. We've had, again, my team, they get upset. They said, you're opening the factory as if it's a museum. But frankly, the amount of visitors we got in the factory served us well and served them well. I always call it a reciprocity of the relationship to the benefits of the society. Because when you have academic institutions, I serve in the School of Engineering and the College of Business Technology. And the reason why I'm serving there is you're trying to bridge that gap between the knowing and the doing. The private sector got all the know-how and they're actually practicing. So they are practitioners. And the universities got the intellectual capitals. They got so many resources. You talk about, 250 professors. You talk about thousands and thousands of college students. And if you bring those two together, miracles can happen. So yes, we do cooperate with universities. It's always not enough. So, and my usually ask of people in the academia is to reach out and ensure students and faculties are aware of what's happening within the private sector. And luckily, there are companies today in Saudi now that got the know-how. Where I work, we got an R&D department. We have our labs, and that cooperation is taking place. I know KAUST is one also of the universities that is quite serious to become an incubators, and they do. I see them visiting, and I see their students also visiting. So the cooperation is there. Is there a room to do more? Yes, there is a room. Thank you. Salam.
Mohanad, you are dealing with activities, myself in tears. Your speech is very refreshing. My question, this was quite alarming when you said 40% is carbon emission from buildings. I know there are measures being taken by the government, by the Ministry of Energy, to the energy efficiency center and others. Like for example, in our in Akbar, we want us to reduce the diesel usage at all. Does Greenland have some initiatives how to deal with 40% of this building, which are residential, industrial, commercial? Are there some processes like I do, if we say 10 days that at what stage I can expect in addition to some changes that usage of gases, some modified gas like corporate economies? Are there any other initiatives in place?
Sure. let me speak about the area where I deal mostly with, and it's to do with buildings. I mean, you've mentioned a couple of other areas, but I was part of the COP28 in Sharm el-Sheikh 2 years ago, and I got to know more about the Saudi green initiatives and what they're doing through plantations of 20 billion trees to offset against the carbon emissions from buildings. And as I said, and when it comes to consumer products, I'll be very frank with you, the type of machines that were sold in Saudi prior to 2015 followed no latest technologies that were available at the time in North America and European markets. And again, I'm talking about the energy efficiency ratios that was used back prior to 2015. The transition was painful. I mean, I'll have to confess. I mean, it wasn't easy to move from 7 ER to 10 and then 11 and 12 and 13 in a very short period of time. But the benefit of that, I mean, this year actually, we've exported already 100 chillers out of our manufacturing facility in King Abdullah Economic City. And people ask me, how did you do it? I said, well, it was easy. And I meant it was easy. Why it was easy? Because we had all the certifications needed for North America market. Our energy efficiency ratio that were related to our units, they were exactly similar to what's being sold in the US. So we didn't have to develop, we didn't have to do an R&D only to cater for the American. Because the Saudi regulations here now, when it comes to the energy efficiency ratios, is similar to the one that you see in Europe and the United States. And this is a live example that we've had. So it opened up more doors and opportunities for us. So from consumer products, I think that's taking place. As I said, from applied system also, we're seeing SASO regulations also being applied against the applied system for industrial usage, or even, I mean, the mega and the giga jobs that we're seeing. Refrigerants, I mean, also Saudi is adhering to the Montreal protocols. We're seeing also same adaptations of the technology that are also sold in the US and in Europe, and phasing out from old refrigerants that are used here. So truly, I mean, comes to energy, it is driven, I think, and I truly believe, we will exceed in some areas what's happening in other European and US market in terms of the speed and the enforcement level that we're seeing in Saudi. You talk some of the manufacturers, they'll start complaining about that. We've built, give another data points. We've built just recently the largest laboratory to test for chillers, up to 600 tons. They only exist in 3 locations worldwide. There are actually, I'm told, there are only 5 labs in the world testing for that capacity. I'm talking about screw up to 600 tons cooling. And by the way, I mean, we haven't made any public announcement, so you'll not see it. But it just got commissioned about a week ago. And it has to do clients, mega and giga jobs, big clients that are asking for technologies that are environmentally friendly with a high level of efficiency. And you have to do the testing. They want to come and do the factory witness test themselves. And we had the choice either to do it in Saudi or take it outside Saudi. And the cost to take it outside Saudi and book a time, it was just, I mean, not economically feasible. So we had to do it here. And when I say 1 of 5 globally, that tells you Saudi is leading the way in the Middle East area when it comes to energy efficiency regulations. Right? No questions. Thank you very much. We'll take the last one, please.
Hello.
Thank you.
Just would like to ask like a general question related to the construction industry. How do you see the construction industry like working toward lowering the CO2 emissions and maybe achieving the net zero? So, in your opinion?
Again, it depends who you're talking to. We get lots of college students and lots of high school students to our factory. And quite interestingly, the first questions they ask is about environmental related issues. So I have full faith on our future leaders. They do believe in the issue, they talk about it, they're fully aware of the implications of not having the latest and greatest technologies that reduces power consumption. Now, when you talk about construction, frankly speaking, as I said, you have to segment that. I mean, consultants, I see the level of awareness is increasing. Come to end user, I think we need to do much more in educating end users. Comes to contractors, and that's when it becomes, quite very tricky. Because contractors, they expect to get paid for whatever technology they're employing. And there you see lots of pushback and lots of negotiations taking place between end users, consultants, and the contractors. Each one wants to, the end user wants to employ the latest, but they don't want to pay for it. And it's unfortunate. When I said Tershid, the model is quite simple. It's not only they're employing technology or employing the hardware because, hey, it's good for the environment only. No, it makes economic sense. I provide financial guarantees, financial collaterals, they'll get their money back in 4 or 5 years. To get your money back in 4 or 5 years, it's a very nice IRR, right? 20%, 25% sometimes with some of these energy saving measures. Lighting, just as usually we use lighting as part of our ESM, our energy saving measures. The payback is about 1.7 years. Some of the HVAC system, the payback is in about 3.5 years. So it's not only a burden. You could make financial sense out of it. But then the right education has to play, be part of the discussion. And contractors, usually they're not incentivized to do these things without getting paid for it. So it's the end users, is the consultants, is the renter of the facility that really has to pay attention. And as a society, we have to have that discussion similar to our event here today to talk about these things. Only then, I believe, the construction markets as a whole will be able to move from where we were, where we are, to where we want to be. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.